Alrighty guys, I'm KC and welcome to a brand new episode of Into the Farlands. If you don't know what this series is, this is a series where we are walking to a piece of terrain that is called the Farlands. They generate at about 12.5 million blocks out in the distance, but it is kind of a long trek. And so I decided to use this as like my vlogging series as a way to talk to you guys in regards to things that are going on in my life. We've talked about quite a lot of things over the course of this series. We've talked about movies that I like. We've talked about games that I like. I've told you a couple of stories from when I was a kid, and we've talked about family. And today I want to talk about lawless faith, or faithless law. And what do I mean by that? Well, when I say faith, I don't want you to immediately jump to religious faith. I'm just talking about general faith. I have faith that when I put washing in my washer, that my washer is going to work. That kind of faith. You believe in it. And I want to talk about law as in the law. Police, that kind of law. And recently I started watching a series called Motorway Cops, and it's not something that I normally watch. But I saw an episode of YouTube. I was bored, and I thought, you know what? I'll just pop that on and see what it's like. And I saw many different types of people, but one in particular that stood out to me was people who just didn't have faith in the police. And to an extent, they're right, in my opinion. To an extent, they're right. Now, this doesn't mean that they are completely right, because we should have faith in the police. We should believe in the police to do the right thing. But a lot of people have this idea that the police are like licensed bullies. And the police tend to ignore this by just going, no, we're not. But that doesn't reassure people. That doesn't make people feel better. Now, I've had 2 run-ins with the law in my life. One resulted in me being threatened with arrest many times. The other did not. Now, one of these was pertaining to a wall I allegedly drove into with my car and wrecked. The other one was to do with a family member's vehicle being seized. And I want to talk about when I was threatened to be arrested and what that was kind of like to me. So I get a call from a family member who says that her car was being seized by the police for not having valid tax. Now, the place that she'd parked this was a private car park, or she believed it to be a private car park. And this was 15 years. Well, it would be about 15 years ago. It'd be about 10 years ago. But it was quite some time ago. And you could legally, if your vehicle's tax had expired, you could keep it on private land for so long until you could get it taxed, as long as it didn't go too long. I think the period back then was like a month or something. But anyway, it had only been untaxed for a few days. And, well, somebody on the estate had called it in. And, she had kids, and the kids were very annoying to the neighbours, so the neighbours called it in. But anyway, she was in absolute hysterics. She was a very stickler for the law. She'd followed it to the T. She thought, oh, it's on a private car park, it's okay, but technically it was a public road. It wasn't technically a car park, but it was like a cul-de-sac. And there was white lines marking it out. It looked like a car park. Anybody with eyes could see that that was a car park. But apparently it was a public road, not a private one. So it counted. Anyway, the cop who addressed the situation was a lady cop. This has nothing to do with the gender, by the way. Before anyone starts dissing this was just a lady cop. She was very passively aggressive. She explained absolutely nothing to my family member. So I arrived there, thinking, okay, I can resolve this in some way, shape, or form. And so I went to talk to the lady cop. And my first thing was, okay, so what's actually happening here? What's going on with the car? And the lady cop refused to answer me. She says, I'm not speaking to you. I'm dealing with this. And I was like, well, what's happening with the car? Is she going to be able to get this recovered? Does she have to pay a fine? What's going on? And the lady cop again asked me to step aside. And I says, well, is it possible that she could get her bag out of the car? Because it's got a bank card in it and she needs that to live on. And again, the lady cop refused to answer me, telling me to step away. And I was being very calm and collective with my questions, asking sort of like what was going on and stuff. She refused to answer me, and then I says to her, I says, well, how do I know you're a real cop? You could just be a scammer because you're not answering any questions. I'm not getting any information here. My friend, my family member is in there, absolutely in tears. She was married into the family, okay? So I get confused with the friend family bit, but she's in there. She's in tears. She has no idea what's gonna happen to her car. You know, she's not in a good way. Can I just get some answers? And then she threatened to arrest me. Told me if I asked her one more question, she was going to put me in handcuffs and put me in a car. And then that's when I said, okay, well, I'm going to ring 999. I'm going to figure out if this is a real situation, to which she reached for her handcuffs. I then went inside. And I rang up, and sure enough, the incident was a legit incident. So I knew that they weren't scammers trying to take my friend's car at this point. And anyway, she was my cousin's wife. Anyway, I notice looking out the window that there's another cop in the car, in the police car. So I think, okay, well, I've had absolutely no luck with this female cop. She's not willing to answer any questions that I have. So I'm going to go see if this chap will talk to me. I got to do something. My friend's in a right state. So I knocked on his door, and he opens his door, and I ask him, I say, look, I'm getting nothing from your co-worker there. Can you help me out? And when I knocked on the window, he was writing in a notebook. And when I knocked on the window, he closed the notebook fairly quickly. And my thought at the time was like, oh, he's not going to help me. He's just going to write this down, and I'm going to be drawn up for something or other. I'm going to end up leaving here in handcuffs, you know, just because I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And he was really, really nice, and he was like, yeah, and he came in the house. He spoke with us for quite some time. Then he went out and got the bag out of the car. He retrieved the bag for us. He told us exactly where it was going, what parking, what impound lot it was going to, what we needed to do to get it done. That we had, I think it was 14 days to pay the fee, otherwise the fee would double. And he told us all of this, but he took a particularly interest in me. He was asking me like what his partner had said to me, and I told him that she threatened to arrest me, this, that, and other. And he said that I can make a complaint if I want. And he really encouraged me to make a complaint. And every time I spoke about her, everything that I said about her, he wrote down in his notebook. And at first I was like, oh, great. This is something they're going to have to laugh about later, you know. He's the good cop, she's the bad cop. And, you know, I'd been in scenarios up until that point. You know, I'd worked with people up until that point that I knew that sometimes in situations, particularly for bailiffs coming out to a client, that you're going to have a good cop and a bad cop. And it doesn't really matter which is which. You know, it's just the way that they work. It's part of how it goes. You know, they do it to get you trust with one of them, to make you think one of them's on your side. And I figured that he was the one who's going to play that. But I only wanted answers, and I was getting them, so I was happy. Now, where I live, we have like a patrol that goes around the village every now and again, or at least we used to. We had like our local police who would deal with it. You know, I live in a village of like 4,000, 5,000. We had a unit that was special for our village, and they were plastered over every single shop. You had little Crime Stoppers poster that had both of them on it. It had the male who I'd spoken to and the female with her. And in every single shop, there was always something scribbled across her face, or something like a speech bubble coming out from her mouth in some instances. There were derogatory comments about her written on these, but only her, not him. So I kind of figured that, well, he must always play the good cop, and she must always play the bad cop. But anyway, she ended up getting fired few years later, and I found out later because my aunt used to be a receptionist for the police station where I live, but obviously when they shut this police station in this village, they moved it out. She was retired. She was about 60 something. She didn't want to retire, but there was nowhere for her to go, so she chose to retire. She had no choice. But she actually pulled me aside and says, "Hey, Thingy's wife, you remember that cop? She's been fired. Misconduct. And almost everyone that I've spoken to that's ever had a run-in with the police in our area has always said the same thing about her. She was passively aggressive. She was clearly a bully, licensed to bully, and she enjoyed that. She really had no time for anybody who was breaking the law. And, I completely agree with it that, you shouldn't break the law. But there's no need that when someone has broken the law and they're clearly upset about that, they clearly had no intention of doing it. There's a big difference between intentionally breaking the law and then unintentionally breaking the law. Making a mistake to being a criminal, there's a big difference. But she told us that we could pick up the car from the local impound lot, which was in our village. So it was literally just down the road. And I think it was like 150 quid. I don't know. I'm going back I was about 19, 20 at the time. So I'm going back about 8 years. And, we went down there. Car wasn't there. She'd actually had it towed to the next county over. It was 20 some miles away. And when we got to the impound lot, the guy says, "Was it officer, insert officer's name here?" And we said, "Yeah." And he says, "She does this. She has a car towed here, only to have it towed elsewhere. And there's no need to it." And when we contacted her about why she'd moved the car, she told us that the lot was full. Now, remember the aunt I said who used to work with the police force? Well, her daughter's married to a mechanic, and this mechanic works in the garage that the lot is assigned to. And anyway, she asked him, and he says, "No, we've never been full. We can hold 20 cars there, and we only hold cars there for the police from this village, nowhere else. Our garage can hold 4 cars total to work on. And we service the village, Our lot is never full. We have more space than we know what to do with. Where we keep cars, we can hold 20. Inside the actual garage where we work on them, we can hold 4. There's only 2 mechanics who work and a receptionist, so we're never working on more than 2 cars. We only service the village. There's no way. It's never full. Just never. Even when we've got a busy week, even when we've got clients, because like I said, people usually drop off their car here, pick it up later on that day because we do the village. So we knew that the parking lot wasn't full, but she'd had it transported somewhere else. And even when we got all the way there, the fees had gone up from £150 to £300. And if we didn't come up with that money in 14 days, and we were on I think it was like day 10 or 11, then the fees were going to double. And if we didn't come up with it, and I think it was like 28 days, I'm struggling to remember the exact terminology here because it was a while back. But anyway, we got there, and the guy behind the counter just said to us as soon as we walked in, he went, "Here for a car towed from insert your village name here?" I was like, "Yep." Well, my friend was. And he was like, because it's been towed, because we've had to tow it from your village to here, you've got now our fees on top of it, or we charge the police, but the police pass that charge on to you, and you've got to pay X amount now, and we charge you by the day for how long it's here. And he was just he didn't like his job. He was annoyed, and he just flat out told us, he just went, I know you're not going to be able to afford it. Car's going to get crushed. I do this all the time. She brings them to me all the time, and I've had people come from Birmingham because she's got a friend there, and they do this. And I'm like, what? Seriously? Birmingham? I was like, yeah. I've dealt with it. She has cars towed from all across your county, and she's got a friend who's the same in Birmingham. They just do this. It's ridiculous. But I'm just a manager here. own the place. I don't set the prices. And well, I don't know whatever happened to a friend, but a friend wasn't in Birmingham, by the way. I just picked a random town that I knew, a random city that I knew, because I don't want to like point the fingers here, if you know what I mean. But the other place was on the other end of where we are. It was like the back end of us, so it was 2 counties away from this place, and it was ridiculous. It really was. She just. But anyway, that was my first run-in with the law. And clearly she was abusing her power and bullying people. And she didn't have time for anybody. She didn't. And that's kind of what makes us have little faith in the law, you know. Because when you hand someone a badge, you give them a squad car, the police uniform, it is a license to bully. I noticed that while watching Motorway Cops that some of the cops were just really genuine, down to earth, and, you know, treat you like a human being, whereas the other ones, they were, I've got this power and I'm going to lord this over you. You know, I'm in control here, not you. I just want someone to bully, and it very much felt like there was a mixture of people who just enjoyed bullying to people who actually genuinely wanted to end crime. And that leads me on to the next point of this, is the fact that so many people believe that police are just doing what they're doing to make money, that they have quotas to meet. And they believe this because we don't really know any different. You know, I've still got one story to tell you about my run-in with the law, the second one. But anyway, we'll get into that in just a little minute. I want to just explain what I mean by this. So, there's a stretch of road not far from where I live that is 50 miles an hour. It's a dual carriageway, and in some places it's even a triple carriageway. It runs through farmland, and it's got average speed cameras on every couple of 100 yards or so. However often they are, I don't know. But it's a huge stretch. It runs like right up my county. Now, there's a dual carriageway that goes through more busier places that's 70 that leads onto it. And when you get close to the end of this place, it actually becomes a 40, but there's nothing that tells you it becomes a 40. Nothing. And if you don't slow down, you get stung with a fine. You know, I had a friend of a friend actually had that happen to her, because I got told of it by my friend. You know, I mean, I drove down that road for the first time one night when I was picking my wife up. Oh, well, I suppose my ex-wife now, but I was picking up from work about a year or so ago now. And it was the first time that I picked her up during the night, and I wasn't prepared to drive my normal route. I figured I'd follow the route that my sat-nav was putting out for me for a change, as it was quicker. So I took that route, and if it wasn't for my sat-nav beeping at me, or I should say my app on my phone, because everyone uses a phone as a sat-nav, beeping at me to tell me I was speeding, I wouldn't have known that I'd entered into a 40. At first I thought, like, oh, I probably just missed a sign. It's like 10:30 at night. It's dark. It's the middle of winter. There's not exactly bright, but I ended up making that my normal route over the next couple of weeks, whether I was taking a to or from work. And I purposely looked out for this sign. And some of these journeys were during the day, some of these were during the night, and there's no sign. There's nothing that tells you that road becomes a 40. So, you know, I thought at first that maybe, just maybe, my sat-nav was a problem, or the app was. But there's another road that's kind of out of the way where I live. It's like I don't know, you can cut through one of the villages where I live to get to the other side of the county. And it goes literally right through the village. But it's always been a 40. It's been a 40 for as long as I've lived here. But just recently, they, for whatever reason, changed it from a 40 to a 30. You know, and I agree with that. I do. It goes past a lot of houses. It goes past a couple of pubs. You know. And it's very uneven, bumpy road. It's not safe to drive down it. I drive down it at 20, you know, 25. It's very rare I get up to 30. There's a brow of a hill. You can't see what's coming. you know. So I agree with that. But thing was, is there were signs up saying it was going to change. It was going to change at the date that the speed limit would come into effect. They'd only been up a week and it was coming into effect, around that time. And this sat nav, had that already updated on its system. Whenever there's been a couple of roads like that actually where I live, and the sat nav has always picked up on it. Never had a problem identifying the speed limit of the road correctly. The only time that it's failed to do so is when there's been roadworks. And the roadwork people have put up a sign, but that's not a permanent sign. That's just temporary. So of course it's not going to pick up that. So I believe my sat nav's right. And then when I found out someone actually got a ticket, I was like, oh, my sat nav will beep it at me. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have known. And I looked. But anyway, yeah. It's things like that make you think that, oh, they're just out there for the money. Now, this could be a genuine mistake, or this could be a scam by the local authorities, and the lack of transparency from the local authorities in regards to this, is just, it just worsens the situation, People just think that they're out to get you. And that's because we haven't got people to communicate with. Now, personally, I think that councils are out to get you because, I did work for a while with a charitable organisation that dealt with people who had issues, whether that be mental issues, whether that be financial issues, whether they be homeless, whether they be addicts of some kind, or substance abuses, as we had to call them. We couldn't call them addicts. But whatever their situation was, and I ended up dealing with the local authorities on numerous occasions. Sometimes I would talk to parole officers, sometimes I would talk to other police officers, sometimes I would talk to bailiffs and stuff. But the worst people I ever dealt with was the local authorities in terms of councils, particularly the council in my district, who I dealt with a lot. They are among the worst. I could tell you a story about this man who was being abused and how they refused to help him. Oh, I could. Maybe I will one day. I won't tell you the guy's name because I wouldn't do that, but the story's worth telling. Believe you me. But anyway, I think that's where people get it confused, because sometimes the police operate the speed cameras, sometimes the local authorities or the local councils operate the speed cameras, And anyway, this stretch of road is 50, and I never understood why. Because I've lived here 18 years. 19 years in a couple of months I've lived here. Not in this particular house, but in this village. And I've never once heard of an accident on that road. But I did a little bit of research before I made this video, and I looked up that road to figure out why the speed limit was 50. It didn't make sense to me. It just didn't. But apparently there's been 16 accidents on that road since, I think it was 2002. And the speed limit came into effect, the 50 came into effect in 2012. And since then, there's been none. So I guess the speed limit's working. But, I had to dig for that. Like, I typed in the road name, but nothing came up. I mean, I got information about the road, but the only thing that I could find out when I typed in the road name was the fact that there was 3 houses sold on there this past year. They sold for about $500,000. It's quite a lot. But judging by the fact they're farms, I guess that kind of makes sense. But I couldn't find out any details about the road. I actually had to find out what the road was called. It's called the A something 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 something. Obviously, I'm not going to reveal because it's literally 5 minutes from where I live. But I had to find that out, and that wasn't on Google Maps. I had to do a little bit more digging to find out that the road name is different to what the nation classes the road as. So it's got 2 names. But anyway, yeah. So it is because of that. But some more transparency. This is pretty cool. So more transparency from the local authorities, the police, and the councils would really help boost public confidence, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying the police are all out to get you. I'm not saying councils are out to get you, because they're not. Most of them are just doing their jobs and trying to keep the country safe from crime, and I completely agree with that. You know, get uninsured drivers off the roads. I mean, my premiums are up because of you guys. Get insurance. You kill somebody, you know, your life's over. Just done with. You know, bye bye. Lock away the key. You're gone. You know, you crash into someone. All of that. If like that happens to me, if I'm involved in an accident, I'm covered. I'm going to get my car replaced. If I'm sued, I'm going to get legal fees covered for me. You know, it's just so much worth having. And it is a pain. It is a pretty penny each month. Mine's nearly 50 quid a month. Was 100 quid. But I'm a good driver. So no claims has taken that down. But just when it comes to the police, I think they need to have more transparency with us. Be more open with us about why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, it's easy to say that going on your mobile phone causes an accident, but most people, they've never seen an accident that's been caused due to being on your mobile phone. You know, I think that, you know, make more information about this available and put it on a more widely accessible platform. You know, they may have stuff like this on their website. They may have stuff like this out there for people to go and get, but people aren't going to do that. Put it on YouTube. People will watch it. People watch out on YouTube. They'll watch a guy sitting in the corner for half an hour. Trust me, they do. They'll watch anything. Put it on YouTube. Monetize it. Making yourself some income there. While also teaching people about road safety. And a lot of the other things. And explain why these laws are in effect. You know, people are more likely to follow a law if they believe in that law and they know why it's in effect. As opposed to thinking, oh, this is just for money, this is. You know, a lot of people, they don't see past that. They just see that it's a money-making scam. They don't see what's really the truth. Believe you me, I've got a friend and everything is a conspiracy to him. Everything. You know, this rain England's had, that's a weather machine. That's a weather machine. I'm pretty sure that a weather machine is possible. I mean, the weather is easily manipulatable. But I don't really think they're using it just to give us rain. It makes no sense. Oh, is this my second night? I thought this was my third night. I really thought this was my third night. Okay, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just my second night. Oh. Or did I pick up a bed? I think I picked up a bed. Yeah, because I distinctly remember sleeping twice before. But we'll go on for one more day. Have I been walking backwards? No, I haven't. So, I think if the police were more forthcoming with the reasons behind it and helping people understand it, then people would understand the laws to a greater degree. But the way that it stands at the minute, people struggle to relate to the police, I think. I think a lot of people see the police as bullies with a license to bully. And it's easy to do that, you know. Like I said, I had that experience with a police officer that really led me to believe that. You know, I didn't trust the police after that incident for some time. And anyway, I told you I had 2 run-ins with the law. The second one, I was a provisional license holder. And a cousin was getting rid of a car, and I was like, she was desperate for the money for the car. And this neighbour had been messing her around for about a month now. So I offered her £100 more for the car. And she accepted the deal. But when it came time to hand over the car, she couldn't take £100 more off me. Not on her conscience. She couldn't do that. She was like, look, you can have it for the same price that they were going to have it for. I can't take £100 more off you. I just can't. It's not fair. I was like, "Are you sure? I know you're in a bit of bother. I don't mind helping out." And she's like, "No, no, no. Besides, you know what's wrong with this car. You know it's got about £400 more worth of work that needs doing to it." So I was like, "Okay then." So I took the car off of her. I spent the money getting it fixed up. I insured myself and my mum to drive on it. My mum predominantly drove the car. It stayed at her. I only drove it whenever I had to go anywhere. I drove, of course. But for 99% of the time, it was with her. She would leave it at my house maybe once a month, and I would give the car a clean out, make sure it was all clean. I liked my car smelling nice, looking good, and whatnot. And so I do that like once a month, give it a hoover out. And it was with me. It was on my driveway, and I ran into a bit of bother with the tax. It wasn't like a major bother. It was the fact that I just purchased a car off my cousin. She hadn't sent the logbook off yet because the tax was still valid, and it was an MOT, so it needed work to do. So there was no need to transfer that over just yet. We figured we'd sort the MOT out first, then I could get it insured and I could get it taxed. So we did that. We got it. We got the MOT done on it. We got it insured, and then we went ahead and taxed it. Or did we tax it first, then insure it? No, because I was insured before we didn't insure it till after we taxed it. No, we insured it first. But anyway, so after that, she sent the logbook off, and I went on about going ahead and adding the tax. However, there was an issue on the website where I couldn't actually put in the number that I needed to put in. Every time I put it in, it was refusing it. It just kept coming up that the car was taxed. So I rang the DVLA, explained the situation to them, and they told me it was something to do with their computer systems. Was that the only way that they could do it was if I was to tax it over the phone, but if I did it that way, I would have to pay the £200 and some tax up front, and at the time I couldn't afford it. I just spent £400 and some on a car, another £400 and some on repairing that car. I didn't have another £200 and some, and she says, "Well, look, the tax takes a few days to actually come off of our system. So if you check our system as you do every day, don't drive the car, obviously, because if the police pull you up, they are going to know that it's not taxed. But if you just keep it on your drive, you'll be okay. And just check, and then as soon as it comes up as being untaxed, you can go ahead and you can tax it online then. And that won't be a problem. I'll put a note on the system just in case someone reports you on your drive that you have contacted us and this, that, and other." So she went ahead and did that, and I put the car on the drive, and it stayed on the drive. And then next door neighbour's kids. Next door neighbour was a grandma, and she went on holiday for a weekend or a week. I don't know how long she was away, but this was in the middle of the summer. It was in the middle of the massive heat wave, and she had a pool on the back garden. It wasn't like a built-in pool. It was just one of them paddling pools you buy, but it was a big one. It was a really big one. And she had her grandkids over. Her grandkids came over while she was away and played in this pool. Now, I wouldn't let my enemies play in that pool because the water in that pool was green. That pool was set up about, 2 weeks ago. Water was put in it, and it was left there for like 2 weeks. And then they went and played in it. It was gross. It was really, really gross. I would rather bath in sludge than in that water because I would probably get cleaner. But anyway, they were moving up and down, and then I heard a smash. My car's on the driveway. My driveway is right next to their gate, by the way, like right next to it. They have a fence going right up to the edge of their property. My driveway is right next to that, and they have a gate on that fence. So when they open up, they have to walk onto my property to get out. There's no other way around it. And it was caused. The issue was there's markings on the ground, right? There's like markings where part of it's concrete and part of it's not. And the house changed hands not long after we moved here. And obviously anyone who's anybody thinks that those, where it's gravelled, that's my property, where it's concreted is theirs. And they've got about a foot and a half of concrete. But nope, our landlords were like, nope, that's actually our property. They came out, they showed us where the property like lines where it turns out that their gate is literally right on their property lines. They had to put the gate right on their property lines. So they must have. So anyway, it comes right down to my car, and I says to my mate, I says, you know when you go out for a cigarette, because I don't allow smoking in my house. I don't smoke, so I don't allow it in my house. Do you mind going out the front and just sitting on the car, or sitting by the car? I unlock car, sit in the car if you want. So you got a seat, just keep the door open. Just make sure they don't scratch a car or anything. He's like, yeah. And my friend smokes a lot, and I mean a lot. But anyway, they didn't do anything on the car. But the damage that they did was they smashed the grandma's back window. They pulled down a fence panel on the grandma's backyard. And they also broke the front wall. Now the front wall was slightly damaged before this. It was leaning a little bit. You give that enough force, it's going to come down. But they were jumping on it, they were kicking it, they were booting it, according to my friend. They were trying to deliberately push that wall down. And anyway, eventually it came down. And so I go about my day-to-day business as you do, not knowing anything. Then a couple of days later, wife comes in. She says, "Do you knock down next door's wall?" I was like, "When?" Then she went, "A couple of days ago. Grandkids said you did it with your car. You ran into it. You drove straight into it." And I was like, yeah, I so totally did that. I mean, you could tell by the massive dent on the side of my car that I did that. I mean, just go and look at my car. It's totally wrecked. You could tell I drove into a wall. And that's when my friend barked and went, no. They were pulling that thing down. The two little boys were. I was watching them do it. And I was like, yeah, because neighbor just said me about it. I was like, seriously? I was like, let me go out and talk to him. See if I can help him out or anything. My wife was like, no, just leave it. Don't want things to escalate. I'm like, I'm not going to escalate. I'm just going to talk it out with him. And my wife talked me into leaving it. To be honest, I didn't want to bother with it. I know I didn't do it. And, I had proof I didn't do it. But anyway, didn't know anything for about a month. In a month, I get a knock at the door. So I open the door. Two coppers stood there. And my heart just drops. You get up in the morning, you're the only one in the house, and two coppers are at your door. You start, okay, what's going on here? My first instinct is my mum been involved in a crash? My mum's got my car. Has she been involved in a crash? Is my wife okay? Is my daughter okay? That's what my mind goes to. But they was like, we're here in regards to Mrs. Insert neighbour's name here. Swall. And the reports that you hit it with your car and that you are a provisional driver and that you did it driving on your own. And they looked around and says, where is the car? Is it in the garage or something? I was like, no, it's with my mum. My mum's I am a provisional license holder. I'm not anymore. I did pass my test. But back then I was a provisional. I was like, yeah, I'm a provisional license holder. I drive with my mum. I'm insured to do something. I showed them my insurance documents. I showed them my MOT and my tax documents, which they didn't even want, but I showed them nonetheless. And they asked me where the car was. I said, it's with me, mum, and I gave them my mum's address. And they asked me if I did it, which I denied because I didn't do it. And they went up and they said, okay, well, we'll go and have a look at your mum, at the car, your mum's. Obviously, it's a big wall. If you've hit that, there's going to be damage, and obviously there's going to be damage, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. This isn't the first time we've been called out in regards to this family and instance like this. They're fairly common. They didn't say it like that. They did say more how they do it, but the basic story was that apparently they'd done this to other neighbours, which I found out later on that they did, but they went ahead and checked my car, and I wasn't worried. I knew they wasn't going to find anything, And even if I'd hit that wall and I'd replaced something on my car, you can tell a new part from an old part. You can. And well, they came back to me and they was like, we've looked over the car, we can't see any signs at all. you know, your car's damaged or hurt or broke or anything. We can't find nothing. They did say something about my car. But the back number plate was slightly dirty, but apart from that, they didn't say anything else about it. And even that, it was still legal. It's like if we had to find anything wrong with your car, it was the back number plate's a little bit dirty. I was like, oh God, do I need to clean that? Nah, it's just a little bit dirty, that's all. I'll get right on that. But, yeah. So, that time they was very polite with me. They was very nice with me. I offered to show them my insurance documents. I offered to show them everything that I had. I had nothing to hide. I was innocent. I didn't take down the wall, but the little kids wanted to blame it on me. I suppose it's easy to blame it on me, blame it on the provisional license holder. You know, the cops came out. I suppose it might have been a different story had the car been in my possession, but it wasn't. It was with my mom, which is where it was most of the time. But yeah, I think that's going to call it for this episode, guys. So, if you've enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like. And if you've got any stories about the law that you'd like to share, go ahead and share them down below. Guys, I'm Casey, I want to thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.